I stood still in the quiet kitchen, a glass of lemonade trembling slightly in my hand. From the living room, Stella's voice echoed, firm and filled with implication. If you can't give him a son, then I'll find someone else to do it. That wasn't the first time I'd heard it. But this time she said it directly to me. No pretense, no softening. Just a bare truth dropped into daylight like it was the most natural thing in the world. My name is Louisa. I'm 38 years old. I teach literature at a high school in the suburbs of Charleston, South Carolina. I've been married to Daniel for 10 years. We have a daughter named Lily. She's 5 this year, with wild curly hair and the curiosity of an old soul. Every morning I drive her to school. Every night I read to her before bed. Those small moments used to be my whole world. My mother-in-law Stella lives next door. Widowed for years, she sees Daniel as her entire life. She gardens, cooks well, knows how to charm guests. But with me she's sharp, critical, quietly judgmental. I remember clearly when Lily turned 2, she started asking directly, "When are you planning to have another?" When I answered that just the 2 of us were enough, she gave a cold smile. "Enough for you, but not for this family." After that came questions about my diet, doctor visits, fertility tests. Every visit to her house felt like an inspection. From meals to sleep patterns. Daniel avoided it all. He didn't defend me but didn't oppose her either. He just shrugged and said, "She's just worried. Don't take it to heart." I used to think it would all pass. But the more silent I became, the more Stella pushed forward. In a silent war I was never invited to fight. When I suggested that we both get checked for fertility, Daniel refused. Said work was too busy. So I went alone. The doctor said my reproductive health was perfectly normal. I'm not sure when exactly my mother-in-law started crafting her own plan. But I felt the shift. Daniel grew more distant. The urgent meetings on weekends increased. Stella's gaze changed, no longer disappointed but calculated. I never imagined the day would come when she'd say it to my face. If I couldn't give her a grandson, she'd find someone else to do it for me. It all started on a Friday night, when I was tidying up the bedroom and found Daniel's second phone tucked under a pillow. It was an old phone he once said he used for work calls. I had never gone through my husband's belongings before, but that night, something compelled me to turn on the screen. No password. The latest message was from a name I didn't recognize. Carly. The message read simply, "I hope for good news soon. Your mom is so sweet. Thanks for dinner." I read it again and again. Every word burned. His mom. Sweet. Good news. I checked the call history. Carly's name appeared often, midday, midnight. Some photos had been exchanged. Nothing explicit, but in one picture, Carly was in a nightgown, hair down, with a background that looked familiar. My heart pounded. I searched her name online. After a few tries, I found out Carly was a media assistant at a real estate firm. A firm in which my mother-in-law held minor shares. A thin connection, but it couldn't be coincidence. I told my best friend Julia, who worked at the notary office. He helped me check some legal records. A few days later, Julia called back, her voice uneasy. "Lou, did you know your mother-in-law co-signed for a luxury apartment near West Hill? The other name is a girl called Carly. That apartment was purchased 4 months ago. The same time Daniel started taking more business trips. The pieces were falling into place." I pulled up the old photo again. And there it was. The curtain in Carly's photo was the exact same model from that apartment. I'd seen it before when Julia and I toured a model home last year. I didn't confront Daniel. I didn't want more lies. Instead, I watched silently. Every morning he still kissed our daughter's forehead before work, still smiled during dinner. As if nothing had changed. But I knew, part of his life had shut me out. And Stella? He started making veiled remarks like, "There are girls willing to sacrifice to give a son. They just need a little help." I understood then she was done pretending. She had chosen Carly, not a random affair, but a carefully selected candidate. That night I looked at myself in the mirror. A woman, 10 years of marriage, 1 child, a home built with her own hands, was being quietly replaced piece by piece. But I didn't cry. I knew if I cried now I wouldn't be calm enough to do what I needed to do next. One Tuesday afternoon I was washing dishes when Daniel came home earlier than usual. He didn't say a word, just placed a white envelope on the table. I opened it. It was a financial prenuptial agreement. A contract that restructured our assets in case one party chose to expand the family outside the bounds of traditional marriage. I had never seen a document so absurd. I looked up at him. Can you explain what this is? Daniel stared at the floor, exhaled deeply. Mom said this is for the future. Thinks we should be more open. About options. About having a son. I wasn't mistaken. He said it without shame. As if creating a child with another woman could be laid out on the table like some technical solution. I asked bluntly, "Is Carly pregnant?" He flinched, then went silent. I didn't need another word. Daniel's eyes said it all. The next day I went to Stella's house. She welcomed me in as if nothing serious was happening. She wore her favorite beige outfit, the usual string of white pearls, and brought out jasmine tea like she always did. I placed the contract on the table. "You're behind this?" She nodded, calm as if she were discussing fixing a fence. "I did what had to be done. You can't give him a son, Louisa. I can't let this family line die out." I laughed. A dry, bitter laugh. "So you picked a young woman and built a second family, while still expecting me to wear the title of legal wife?" For the first time her eyes flashed with a trace of anger. "You don't understand. If Carly has a son, the child will be raised in a complete home. He can still stay with Lily. Everything is arranged. You just need to agree." I stood up. "I'm not some outdated software. Not a disposable version you swap out when you're done. I am the wife, the mother of his daughter. And I won't be here as some backdrop for your family drama." I left that house feeling like I had just stepped out of a theater. A tragic farce I never auditioned for. That night I didn't sleep. I lay beside Lily watching her. I thought about all the silence I had accepted for years. And I knew it was time to speak up. Not with words, but with action. I didn't say another word to Daniel about Carly. I didn't mention the strange contract either. I went back to my daily routine as if nothing had happened. Still cooked, still took Lily to school, still placed a book on her nightstand every evening. But in my mind, every step was already being laid out. I started gathering evidence. From our joint bank accounts, I discovered Daniel had been transferring a fixed amount each month to someone named Carly Jensen. Each transaction was labeled simply, "personal living expenses." A cold and shameless way to describe it. I reached out to a private lawyer, not a family firm, but someone who had helped a friend through a delicate divorce. Her name was Andrea Morgan, sharp, discreet, and particularly experienced in cases involving marital assets and custody battles. Andrea listened carefully as I told her everything, from my mother-in-law's schemes to Carly's arrival, to that horrifying agreement. After a few sessions she asked me, "Are you sure you want to fight? This won't be easy. They're trying to write you out of your own life." I nodded. "I'm not trying to win Daniel back. But I won't let my daughter grow up surrounded by lies. And I won't let another woman claim the dignity I've held onto for 10 years. Andrea began filing motions for temporary financial measures with the court. Meanwhile, I quietly backed up text messages, photographed the transfers, and asked Julia, my best friend, for copies of the apartment documents Carly was living in. A few days later, another message from Carly hit me hard. "Doctor says it might be a boy. Your mom is thrilled." I printed it out. Slipped it into a black folder beside the rest of the documents. I labeled the folder Truth. I also took Lily for a DNA test, just in case the other side tried to play dirty. I didn't know if Daniel would ever deny his own daughter. But I had to make sure I never lost what mattered most. I sent Daniel a short message. "Tomorrow night, 7 p.m. You, your mother, and I, we need to talk. No delays. No question mark, no explanation." But I knew he'd come. And Stella, she would never turn down a confrontation she believed she could win. That evening, the living room smelled faintly of pine and tea. I turned on every light, leaving no shadow to hide in. The folder labeled Truth sat on the wooden table, next to 3 glasses of water. No cookies, no fruit, just what needed to be uncovered. Daniel arrived first, hands in pockets, eyes avoiding mine. Stella followed 5 minutes later in a wool coat, bold red lipstick, and a brown leather purse. Looking like she was heading into a boardroom. I didn't waste words. "I know everything. About Carly. About the contract. About the money you've been sending her. And yes, I know she's pregnant. And that you believe she's carrying your grandson." Silence fell. Daniel glanced at his mother. Stella lifted her chin. Yes. We did what needed to be done. You're not young anymore, Louisa. You can't give him a son and Daniel needs an heir. I can give birth. I cut her off. I just won't bring a child into a family like this. Daniel started to speak, but I raised my hand. I'm not done. I have full evidence that you and your mother have been financially supporting Carly and deliberately hiding the transactions from our joint accounts. I have copies of the illegal agreement. I also have messages between you two planning the pregnancy. I opened the folder and laid out the papers, each document carefully organized. The light caught the clear covers. One by one, the evidence spread across the table, each like a bloodless stab that no one could deny. Daniel said nothing. Stella clenched her purse, her lips trembling. I stood, gathered the folder, and said my final words. I'm filing for divorce. I will fight for full custody. And I will not allow anyone, not you, not your mother, to hurt my daughter ever again. I walked out of the courthouse on a soft spring morning. The sun lay gently across the stone steps, and the magnolia tree out front bloomed with pure white flowers. The divorce hearing didn't last long. Daniel didn't contest. His lawyer proposed a quiet settlement to avoid media attention. I agreed with one condition: full custody of Lily and the house. Carly lost the baby 3 months into her pregnancy. Stella disappeared from our lives. Daniel moved to a different town. Everything fell apart quietly. I didn't return to teaching right away. I spent a few months fixing the house, repainting walls, building bookshelves, planting a rose garden behind the porch. Lily helped me choose the color for her new room, mint green, because she said, "It smells like candy whenever you hug me, Mom." That summer I took Lily to Asheville. We rented a small cabin in the woods. I taught her how to build a campfire, roast marshmallows, and tell ghost stories after sunset. I realized there were things I never dared to do before, because I was always trying to fit the mold of a proper wife. Now I was simply a mother and myself. I don't know what the future holds. Maybe I'll fall in love again. Maybe not. But I do know this. The most valuable thing I kept after everything wasn't winning a divorce. It was the ability to stand tall. Even when everything around me had fallen apart. If you've ever been made to feel small, pushed aside in your own family because you didn't meet someone else's expectations, remember this. You don't have to be someone else to deserve love.